Adventurous kids explore with education and learning what a wild life is in the Everglades. I want to explore the Museum of Discovering Science. What plants do butterflies like? I want to know about Key West Adventurous Kids. Learning and fun. Adventurous Kids!
Today, I'm going to tell you about teaching. So I was a teacher here in South Florida for 11 years, and a lot of people are like, oh, you must have gone to school to be a teacher. Well, there's a couple of different avenues you can take to become a teacher. You can go to school specifically to be a teacher, or you can get a 4-year degree in pretty much anything, and then take a series of classes that certify you to be a teacher. So that's the route I went. I actually got my degree in film and media studies from FAU, and I passed a test. It's had the general knowledge test, and then I got to teach out of what's called out of field for 3 years while I got my other classes done and got my certification. So that's what it takes to be a teacher, right? Usually you have to do your 4 years of college, either study teaching or study something, and then get your certification. And then getting hired, I was fortunate enough that my mother was already in education, so it kind of worked out where she knew somebody who was willing to give me a chance. But what a lot of people do is they go to job fairs, and so it's a high demand job. You know, there's high turnover in the field. That means that people go into the field and then leave the field, which is something that I actually did 2 years ago. So that's what it takes to be a teacher. And then another question I get asked is, well, what is it like being a teacher? Well, it depends on what kind of teacher you are. I can only speak to the elementary school experience. I was a 4th grade teacher. I taught fifth grade push-in support, which means I went into the classroom and worked with some of the lower performing students. I taught PE for 2 years. And so what I can say about elementary school is that, one, you have to be good at everything. You do all the subjects, right? So you got to be on top of what's breaking in the field of reading as well as what's breaking in the field of teaching math. Fitting everything into your schedule. Sometimes what I would do on nonfiction days is put in science or social studies into my reading groups to try to fit everything in. It's very challenging to hit all your time. And then another common question that I get asked is, well, like, do you get to come up with what you teach? No, the state decides what we teach, and then we take those standards and we kind of get to be creative with it. So, like, I used to write fun songs. I have a friend who made a really cool board game. Like, there's a lot of different creative ways teachers can be creative. Not all teachers choose to go that route. For me, it was like, hey, if I got to be here, I want to be having fun too, right? So, but that's what it's kind of like being a teacher. Is that, like, you have to do, for elementary school, you have to do all the grades, right? Plus there's the grading, mountains and mountains and mountains of paperwork, mountains of it. And conferences, you know, talking with different parents and different personality types, and they may or may not agree with certain rules that you have in the classroom, or how to address certain problems that you might encounter with a student, and you have to be mindful and respectful of everybody's way of life and everyone's way of thinking. So that can be kind of challenging, because one of the other things that come up is that, you know, especially as an elementary school teacher, you're spending 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, ideally. You know, obviously there are half weeks and there are breaks and there are things, but you're spending 30 hours a week with somebody else's children. And so on some level, you get to know them pretty well because you spend a great deal of time with them. And that can be hard about the job too, because you're not just their teacher. Sometimes you're a listening ear. You could be, you know, not officially their therapist, but you can be like a therapist where you're listening. You have to play all these roles. And then in addition to that, if you're at a school like mine, pretty likely that you'll be asked to run an after-school club, and that's on your dime. That's on your time. So it can be pretty hard to be a teacher. I can tell you that my most favorite parts about being a teacher were when I got to see kids make these really great leaps of growth with their time with me. That was always my favorite thing in the world. And I still get some students that I saw a student recently. He was working actually at the Renaissance Festival checking people in, and I heard Musru, and he said my last name. And I said, that can't be one of mine. They're too old to have a deep voice. And he's like 16, 17 years old, and he's doing great. And he remembers my class, and he remembers having a good time in 4th grade. And like that makes it worth it. But for me, I had to get out. Like many teachers feel, I went on to pursue other things. So that's what it's like being a teacher. Now, here are some frequently asked questions that I get. I get this one a lot. Do teachers not like some of their students? And I kind of always respond the same way, which is to say, a lot of us have big families, right? And we don't get along with necessarily everyone, but we love each other because we're a family, right? And that's what I tell the kids all the time. Like, different personalities are going to interact differently. But when you're in that class with that teacher, that's a kind of family, and we all respect and love each other because we're part of that family. So that's a big question I get asked a ton. Do you make the tests? No, typically not. Maybe if I'm reviewing something, I might type up like a little quiz or something to do. But most of the time, the state either provides the test or my team leader provides the test. Do you like being a teacher? It's kind of like what I said before. I liked the parts where I got to see the growth. I got to see kids make these really amazing games and do really well. I liked when I got to play at recess, tag and soccer and play and just like have the kids just be kids. I love those parts of teaching. The red tapey type things about teaching, the grading, the lesson plans, conferences, not my favorite. Was not my favorite, and honestly was a good portion of my time as a teacher was spent doing those things. So, and then do you really get summers off? Technically we are only paid for the time that we are in school. It's a very common misconception that teachers get paid for 3 months of no work. That is not true. A portion of our paycheck is actually withheld, and we get paid. You can get paid through the summer, but throughout the school year, a portion of your paycheck is withheld to pay you during that time. It's like a forced savings account type of thing. The other thing is that most teachers do a lot of training during the summer. That's when we're taking a lot of our trainings for different things that we can implement into the classroom so that we can be more effective educators. So to say that teachers get summers completely off, do we get a bigger break than, say, maybe a businessman who's a busy businessman? Yeah, but a busy businessman often with a company gets to pick his 2 weeks or her 2 weeks wherever they want to in the year, whereas teachers are kind of pigeonholed into these summer months are your only months that you get off. So it's kind of weighs out in the end. Thank you for watching this episode of Adventurous Kids.
What did you learn today?
Adventurous Kids!
Adventurous Kids!
What was the most interesting fact?
Adventurous Kids!
Adventurous Kids!
Adventurous Kids!